Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes out is from Chris. I wrote, recorded, and mixed this whole album in my house with a cadre of very talented musicians and vocalists, either recording here or sending in parts from their respective home studios. 100% self-financed and produced. It is quite niche and not for everyone, but I hope you and some of your audience will appreciate it for what it is. This is pretty exciting. I love listening to smaller artists, especially independent artists, and seeing what's happening in the more niche realms of music. What we're going to look at today is a cover of a song from The Police called Synchronicity Too. There will be another song from Neural Glitch that we're going to look at later, but they felt it was best if we started with a cover because of what they described as, paraphrasing here, a very busy sound. So let's dive into this and see what's going on with Synchronicity 2, covered by Neural Glitch. Definitely a lot going on, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was me.
Very interesting decisions there. Very interesting hearing what I believe are the original bass and guitar lines showing up in here in very different ways.
It's total synchronicity. So what are we calling it?
Okay.
Synchronicity?
Okay. Caught me off guard. put on the vocals there. That was fun.
Daddy greets the weed and stares alone into the distance. He knows that something somewhere has to break. Sees the family home now, looming in his headlights. The pain upstairs that makes
It's interesting to hear the sound cut out under the vocals, and for a brief moment the vocals are the only thing audible. Yeah, turn it into some digital noise. Fade it out. What do I say about this? It's a bit outside of my wheelhouse, bit outside of what I normally talk about. I got some neat things though that I noticed. It's very maximal. Maximalist, I think that's probably the proper way of saying that. Anytime that it feels like the song has reached a point that you can't add anything else, Neural Glitch is like, yeah, we're going to put another layer on there. Just really going for the largest sound they can have. In fact, if you looked at the audio visualizer over there, you may have noticed that it was maxed out pretty much all the time. They just really went to fill the sound sphere completely from start to finish. It's definitely busy because of that, whether it's layers, whether it's hearing multiple different ideas, whether it's stacking on so many different samples almost at times, and different layers, building up something that is so complex that I'm sure if you analyzed two different parts of it individually, that you might hear something really interesting from that. But because everything's just sort of smashed together and thrown at the listener, it ends up feeling very wall of soundy. The more that I listened, I could find 8, 9, 10 audible layers going on in some of these parts. There's probably more stuff that's disguised under the production. Maybe it's a texture that I could feel but couldn't pinpoint, something like that. There's always something going on, and if you wait 5 seconds, you'll find something new going on too. From that perspective, it's very hyper. It reminds me of hyperpop without being anything like hyperpop. It feels very electronic like hyperpop, but I think probably because of the police element to it, it feels very rock too. And because of that rock element being brought in with I don't even know if it's timbre. Like, I don't think there's a bass guitar in here. I don't think there's an electric guitar in here. The melodies, I think, from the song are in here, and maybe I'm hearing an electric guitar alongside those. There's also the growls that come in that give it a metallic feel at times. I don't know how to classify this. Is there electro hyper metal? Is that a thing? Electro hyper rock? I don't know. And the fact that it sort of dances around what I can define it as is already something pretty cool. Now, I mentioned the production is very, very mixed, very wall of sounds. It's difficult to pinpoint specific things out of this. It's a blessing and a curse. For me, I would like to hear more detail. My job as an analyzer is to pick out detail from audio and tell you all why it's cool and why it matters. And when I can't pick out detail, I don't do my job very well. That's not something I want to put on artists. I don't want all art to be clearly legible in order to make my job easier. Some art needs to be massive or difficult to discern or difficult to dig through. Putting parameters on what art is worthwhile making, we lose a lot of art that way. So I don't want to be that gatekeeper, right? But I do find it really difficult to talk about all of this without maybe a secondary source. When we have classical reactions up here, I'd say it's about 50-50 that I get sheet music with those. And that helps a lot because when you're talking about a full orchestra, there's so many instruments, so many different moving lines at times that it's really easy to lose some of the finer details for the more grandeur ones. And having the sheet music in front of me allows me to see visually, oh, there's this part here, let me listen for that, rather than always having to rely on my ears, which are good, but not perfect. And something like this, just doing audio only, I'm going to be missing some stuff. I would almost love to have some sort of visual representation, even if it's not the MIDI rolls themselves, even just having the stems in front of me, being able to see how many layers are active and maybe the names of the layers would do a lot for me to dissect it a bit. But again, none of this is really about the music. It's sort of just a little bit of appearing into my mind and how I think about music in this position. But it all does come across as a very wall of sound thing to me because of all of that, because I don't have a secondary source to kind of glean some more information on. But the very maximalist wall of sound approach works exceptionally well for creating something that feels as unwieldy as this, but works. And I think that's a big part of the production to it. Like I mentioned, there's like 13 layers I can hear. There's probably more than that going on. Not everyone can take all of this and make it palatable in a way. I don't think that this is, a for general audience kind of idea. I think your average music listener is not going to be receptive to this. As they even said themselves in the request, the music is niche. Yeah, I agree with that. But it honestly could have been more difficult. The production could have been more of a roadblock, a hurdle to get into it. And it wasn't, honestly. For as many things that are going on here, it ends up sounding very listenable. The things that are supposed to be in the forefront are the moving ideas that I'm pretty sure are supposed to grab your attention. They do, they're present enough in the mix. Nothing in here is really too muddy. Maybe it could be a little bit more high fidelity, but I think at a certain point it's going to push into the realm of pure electronic music, and you're going to hit that sort of sugary sweet, sonic candy is what I call it. When I find these digital artists who just do a fantastic job at like sound placement and crispness of sound and really creating something that feels high fidelity, right? Like the maximum fidelity you could get out of music. If you do that, the song here I think is going to lose some of its weight and energy in order for a clarity and a sparkle, a shine. In the same way that metal I think works by having a bit of rawness to it, the same thing goes with this. It being not perfect production actually benefits it. It works in its favor, and it's not low fidelity enough to be a hindrance to the listening process. And I bring this up specifically because in the email, they mentioned that they wanted feedback about everything, but they were a little worried that the production would be a hurdle, that it wasn't going to be good enough. And honestly, I think it is. I really do. Maybe I would like some clarity in places, but generally overall, I don't really have any specific notes about places where I thought the production was weak in any way. Now, before I get into composition, I want to know what the original was like. So I'm going to go listen to that real quick because there are two solos in here. My gut says the first solo was originally in the Police's track, but the solo that wrapped the song up, I'm not too sure of. I also think that the vocal melody is a sample of the original song. I could be wrong on that. It just feels the production on it feels older. It's less. It feels more muffled than every other instrument. This could have been done intentionally to kind of create this sound, but the vocals also feel very on point for the Police too. So that I think that's a sample. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I heard melodies in here from the guitar and bass originally from the Police too. So I just want to get a little taste of what that is. I'm pretty sure I've heard the song. Things in here sounded familiar, but I want to get some clarity before I start talking about the composition and figure out what I need to attribute to Neural Glitch and what was, what the Police had in a sense brought to this song. So let me do that real quick. All right, so there's actually a lot of new stuff going on in here. Part of it is obviously the production of it. There's a lot of places where we will hear, and it is, I think, the original lines that Sting had recorded for the Police. And you'll have a line where he sings something that was in the original version, and then it'll get panned back and forth while manipulating the sound of it too. So we've actually taken a lead melody from a vocal line and turned it into an atmospheric idea. It's little things like this that permeate through a lot of this. There are additional growls that are put into this song as well that usually, from what I could hear, were tucked underneath the vocals to create texture layering on them. But these also were manipulated and bounced around and placed in different areas, and cool little bits of production tricks going on in them to just modify the way that the song sounds. It's what creates a lot of the movement in here. You can create a wall of sound with a lot of static ideas, but there's a lot of panning, there's a lot of pitch shifting going on in here, there's a lot of other elements that are part of this wall of sound that create something that feels like it's just restless all the time. It just always has to go somewhere and do something. There's a lot of chords that are added, textures, I think, that are added to the original chordal ideas, the original harmonic properties of the song in order to expand the emotions out. Around 3.5 minutes in, when we hit the bridge, I feel like that goes into more of a gloomier stance than was in the original. And it achieved that through new timbres as well as new harmonic ideas, expanding the chords there. The two solos are completely brand new from what I could tell. The one solo that I heard in the original version is more of a noise solo, just kind of holding a note out and playing around with the whammy bar, I thought. Maybe bending of the string, I don't know. It definitely was not the shred heavy soloing that we saw at either place on this track. That's neat. I don't know that it necessarily adds much to the song, but if you were to bring the original solo into the atmosphere that Neural Glitch has created here, it's not going to fit. It's not going to work. It's too different of an idea. And so a new guitar solo had to be written, and as large and massive and chaotic as this song is, you got to go for some shred. You got to bring a lot of that noise and energy through the guitars too. There's also the one production thing that continued to work for me. I don't know how quickly it would kind of lose its novelty, but there are so many places in here where the song will just dip out an entire an entire beat of music. Vocals might continue on, some sort of lead instrument might continue on, but 90% of the group kind of ducks out for a beat and comes back in, stays around for 3 beats, ducks out for 1, comes back in. It creates this scooping effect that honestly I think is going to be something that might get on people's nerves. It's one of those things that I think is going to be very hit and miss for listeners. For me, it worked. But again, like I said, I don't know how long it would work. I definitely felt towards the end of the song, I was like, okay, we've done this a lot. It's kind of getting a little overplayed here, but it's still a neat idea. I still love, especially on that final chorus, ducking out and allowing the vocal stack to be heard clearly there in those brief pockets. I thought that was a very cool sound. So there is a lot of additional composition going on here. It isn't just a simple arrangement, bringing it into more of an electronic tone. There's new things being written, new ways of modulating, not from a compositional side, but from a production side, the sounds that are going on in here to create something new and fresh while still retaining these core lyrics. It's an interesting project. I can't wait for another 2 weeks, I think, until we check out an original song from them. But I'm intrigued by this. It's on my radar right now. I don't know if it's necessarily my cup of tea. It is exceptionally busy, and I'm more of a moderate kind of guy. I don't like my music being too empty, but Maximalist is definitely not my style either. But I do like, as I mentioned earlier, getting to hear some of this stuff that's on the fringe. It's a bit more experimental. That's pushing the boundaries of music, and I do hear a lot of that here. Boundary pushing, that's for sure. I thought there was one more thing I wanted to bring up, and I've been trying to like cycle through my brain for a second, trying to figure it out. And if there was, I've lost it. So I know it's not Neural Glitch's lyrics, but even with covers, I like to see what the lyrics are doing. Primarily because it's always interesting to see what the tone is in the lyrics and how somebody might have interpreted new music to go with that, because maybe they didn't think that the original went in the right direction for the tone of the lyrics. So let me look at that real quick, and then we're going to wrap this video up. All right. So apparently this song, Sting has mentioned in a book called Lyrics by Sting. Wait, is it Lyrics by Sting or Lyrics by Sting? I don't know if that's the book or if it's the book plus the author. Anyways, he said, oh, I guess it is Sting. I was trying to dramatize Jung's theory of meaningful coincidence. We're talking about Carl Jung here and his concept of synchronicity, which is a meaningful coincidence of two or more events where something other than the probability of chance is involved. Here we do see two separate ideas entirely. The verse and pre-chorus looks at a pretty typical suburban family. The second verse and third verse end up looking at the father figure as he goes into the city to work, and work sucks and he has to do these meetings, and then when it's over he has to go through rush hour and it's just terrible and it takes forever, and it just shows a lot of his frustrations with typical suburban living. And it's contrasted with the chorus, which speaks of the Loch Ness Monster. The first and second chorus says, many miles away, something crawls from the slime at the bottom of a dark Scottish lake. And the final chorus says, a shadow on the door of a cottage on the shore of a dark Scottish lake. So the Loch Ness Monster has come out of the swamp, the water, swamp, and is getting ready to, crush somebody's house. He's at the door at the same time that this father figure has, gone to work, come back, drove home through traffic, and is now parked in front of his home, ready to walk into it. He is also at the doorway to his own house. I wonder if it's supposed to be drawing parallels here, that the dad is about to be a monster to his family. Maybe because the Loch Ness Monster is about to destroy this house over there, and we're talking about meaningful coincidence. Two things completely unrelated happening at the same time. If the Loch Ness Monster is physically about to destroy a house. Is this father about to mentally destroy the house or the family? I don't know. I don't think I have a way of really talking about this in the context of the Police's original sound. I don't feel like there's a lot of parallels there between lyrics and musical themes. I don't see it here either, though. Other than maybe we could look at the maximalism of this track and view it as a bunch of ideas that probably normally wouldn't be played together, but are seemingly played together now, creating something that feels very large and cohesive. I feel like that's a bit of a stretch, though. Especially since it's been described to me that this is the sound of neural glitch, just in general, more so than a sound that they picked for this cover. So, I'm not thinking there's too much there, but I'd like to be proven wrong. If anyone has any insight into this that they would like to share, maybe you have your own opinion or perspective on this. If you think I'm wrong about anything and want to call me out, put all of that and any thoughts that you have down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find some links for Neural Glitch's streaming services and social platforms if you would like to find out more about them. I'll also, like I mentioned, in a couple of weeks, we will be returning to them, looking at an original work from them. Further down in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here to my stuff. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.